We've had way too much positivity on this podcast. Our good buddy Jim Cornette has been quite active recently. Have you seen what he's been up to, Wilkinson?
I mean, it's impossible not to because he's a crazy old man.
I just find it funny. Like, the thing is, right? Okay, full disclosure, right? I don't hate Jim Cornette. And in the past, I used to think, oh, he's so fucking abusive and he just says shit. And then I realized he's a shock jock. And then I also realized that actually Jim Cornette has plenty of good things to say. I know that's going to really upset and hurt all the AEW marks or the butthurt fucking marks who live in their basements. But ultimately, it is kind of true. Like, Jim Cornette has plenty of good things to say. This is the problem with Jim Cornette. He can say a million good things, but as soon as he says something inflammatory, all of a sudden the internet just fucking blows up. And it's, of course, not helped by big old tanker himself, Rusev. Now, this is Wrestling Inc.'s thing. I've listened to both podcasts now because he dropped his drive-through yesterday. And that was, wow, you thought his comments were inflammatory before. He never mind double down. This guy quadrupled down on comments. And I got to be honest, I found it quite entertaining. But that's easy for me to say. I'm a neutral looking for the outside in. Jim Cornette has found himself in hot water with Miro and Kip Sabian after his recent comments he made about Penelope Ford on his Jim Cornette Drive-Thru podcast. They were reviewing AEW Revolution. They were talking about his match. He was tagging up with Kip Sabian against Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy, which for many of us, including myself, was a piss break. Enough said, really. But if you want to check it out, you can find it in the video. The latest, last week's drive-through, it's at the 5-minute 35 mark, somewhere around that region, whatever. I'm assuming that Wrestling Inc. has this correct. Cornette is quoted as saying, he's being allowed to be himself, and he is obviously, a complete fucking goof. He has no idea how to get over, no idea what got him over for a little while before in the other company. He does this stupid shit and obviously is enjoying himself doing it. He was paired with a kid that looks like he's in middle school and his slutty girlfriend. To have a feud with a guy that sticks his hands in his pockets and another guy that looks like he cuts his hair with a pencil sharpener, job guy, underneath talent all the way. He's not wrong there, is he, to be fair? And he has embraced this. The part about Ford got Miro writing to Cornette on social media in a series of tweets. If you call Penelope slut again, I'll come like God's wrath on you. You understand? I'll personally drive to your basement, or capital letters. People like the Jim Cornette bring not only pro wrestling down, but young women and men get abused and name called for 40 views on YouTube. That's not strictly true. He does get thousands upon thousands of views on YouTube, but of course, it's just semantics, ladies and gentlemen. He also tweeted and said, "Answer me, you mark." Ford's real-life husband retweeted Miro and responded. That's, of course, Kip Sabian. Legit, Jim Cornette is a total all-talk wet lettuce. His funeral is going to be a joyous occasion, wrote Sabian.
Oh, Jesus.
That's not all. Yeah, that's not all Sabian wrote, and I'll take him to task in a moment over this. While on his Twitch stream, Sabian had similar comments about Cornette. We don't have to worry about it. He's definitely going to die at some point soon, Sabian said. Then we can all, dance. We can have a celebration. That will probably be one of the first times on the internet that I will post something like a celebratory post. You know, and I mean that. I'm not even joking. I'm deadly serious. I cannot wait for that man to die. Okay, fair enough. So, obviously, the beef. Now, I don't have the full transcript because it only just got dropped, but in his latest drive-through, Jim Cornette had a lot of fun with this. Jim Cornette genuinely, legitimately does not give a fuck what anyone thinks, whether you support him or not. And he absolutely hammered down on it by making insinuations that Miro was a suspiciously transgender Russian weightlifter who failed his piss test. Just these were all inflammatory jokes, which obviously were done purely for the sake of winding him up. Carl Wilkinson's face is phenomenal. I can see it in the back. Oh, Jesus. To be fair, you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that whatever Jim Cornette said was appropriate, because it absolutely was not. And, this is Jim Cornette in a nutshell. However, I'll let you have your say, mate, because I've got plenty to say about the reaction, actually, because the reaction pisses me off, because ultimately there's a lot of double standards floating around here. And of course, the full uproar was in effect. And just for context, I saw thousands, and I mean thousands of AEW fans calling Jim Cornette a cunt, everything you can imagine under the sun, saying that he was a cuck and that he just wanted Miro to smash his wife in, and all these very abusive things, which apparently are par for the course and acceptable because Jim Cornette said something rude. So not exactly the most woke response from the most woke audience, but that is what it is. What do you think about this latest beef and this latest upsetting notion from Jim Cornette and the gang?
I mean, do you remember when he said those things about Becky Lynch when she got pregnant?
Yeah, they were taken out of context a little bit. And
yes,
again, here they were as well. By the way,
That's
one of the big things was, I should point this out as well, just quickly, he did refer to her as Penelope Pit Stop. That is not a term. See, this shows how stupid some of the younger generation, and particularly AEW fans, are. They were saying that Penelope Pit Stop was a term for a slut. No, it wasn't. He was referring to the famous character from Wacky Races. And ultimately, I tell you what, you can come for a lot of things on this podcast, but if you come for Wacky Races, I will burn you, mate. You do not come for Wacky Races. I mean, we come for Wacky Races in the term that we simp for it, but that is unacceptable. You leave Wacky Races alone, mate. Dick Dastardly and Muttley, they are gods.
But I don't even know what that is, so I'm just gonna roll on.
Going for an evil one there, that's fair.
Yeah.
Jim
Cornette, he says a lot of things, some good, some bad, but
putting it mildly.
It doesn't really matter what he says. The fact that someone would say, "I can't wait until he dies," is fucked up.
That's Kip
you
Sabian.
Don't wish death upon anyone.
Yeah, and Kip Sabian is a good person. I'd like to think that if he's given the opportunity, Kip Sabian would think twice about that statement, because I know Kip Sabian from the independent scene. He doesn't know me, obviously, but I used to go and see him a lot in the British independent scene. And he's obviously a Brit, as you probably could tell from his accent, excuse me. But I was really disappointed in that. Really disappointed. And also, people celebrating that, like, yeah, can't wait for Jim Cornette to die. That makes you just as bad, if not worse. What kind of a reaction is that? If somebody upsets you so badly, you wish death upon it. Now, Jim Cornette didn't give a fuck. And in a way, I'm kind of glad he didn't. I will say one thing. Brian Last, who is in charge of Jim Cornette's podcast, he's actually really fucking good at his job. Really fucking good. And he had a fantastic little spiel on there about the fact, because, unlike a lot of you woke people, I actually don't mind listening to things that are different to maybe my opinion, because I think it's healthy to have genuine and honest debates and actually listen to the opposition side of things. I think that's how you grow and educate yourself. That's just me. That's just my cup of tea. But he did bring up some good points, because Kip Sabian very quick to make these comments, Miro very quick to defend, women's rights and talk about people getting abused, and yet he also works for a company which is run by openly very happy Trump supporters. Chris Jericho, for instance, who is one of the most prominent individuals on this show, is also an individual who gave a large amount of money to the Trump administration. An individual as well, by the way, Donald Trump, who has numerous accusations levied against him, including sexual assault against women, in what is currently quite an incredibly dangerous climate in terms of women's rights and things going on right now, and rightfully so. Women deserve far better rights than they are afforded, particularly in this country with some of the unfortunate incidents that have broken out recently, and obviously speaking out from last year as well. And Brian Last just simply said, you were roommates with Jimmy Havoc, were you not? Why did you not take him to task when it came out that he was a potential rapist? Why did you not take Chris Jericho to task for being an avid Trump mark? Why did you not take the Young Bucks or the Khans to task for this kind of behavior, and how they openly have supported somebody who is very much against things like abortion and women's rights and women's choice? So, that for me is simply devil's advocate. And I believe that he made some very good statements there. And I'd like to know why Kip Sabian found plenty of time on his stream to show that kind of level of vitriol, and yet doesn't want to address matters that are in-house. Strikes me as slightly hypocritical, to be honest. But the real main thing here for me was that he made that comment. So I just thought, okay, fair enough. Miro, to a certain extent, he's always been somebody who likes to work people on Twitter. But ultimately, Jim Cornette's the one who comes out of this probably looking better in a lot of ways, because I hate to break it to people, and this includes us as well. So I'm not, I'm not trying to pretend that we're above that. Nobody cares what we think. We're just fans. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody cares about us. Nobody cares about what WrestleBlog thinks, really, when it comes down to it. Nobody certainly cares what all the fucking marks on Twitter think. And they certainly don't care what all of Miro's big fucking stands think. They don't. It's a shame because Penelope Ford is a really awesome human being. And I feel like she's kind of been dragged in to other people's nonsense. But of course, she made comments as well, I believe, about, his wife and cucking and things like that. And of course, that backfired on Miro a little bit because his major angle before he left WWE was the angle involving cuckolding and Bobby Lashley getting off of his wife, standing over the top of him. And I know it's just a work and it was just an angle, but still, quite unfortunate. The whole thing is just, for me, very overblown, actually. And I know people are going to say, why are you covering it? But hey, that's what we do. We try and entertain you guys, and we're trying some new things, including covering news topics, which we'll probably be seeing via the YouTube channel as well, if you care to watch. I just find it I found it quite funny, if I'm being honest. Maybe that's because I'm just growing less sensitive as I get older, but I thought it's quite amusing.
Both dumb and funny. Like, it's just seeing a bunch of grown-ass men just throwing words at each other over the internet is fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, it is. And you would hope that Sabian, said what he said just in a heat of the moment, because I've definitely said things, in the heat of an argument that you would never normally say. I mean, that happens to everyone. We're only human. Emotions run high. Shit happens. But you would hope, like you say, later on he could go back and look on it and go, you know what? I don't actually want this guy to die because
up to this point,
wish death upon anyone.
Back on it. I think that's why. And he's had at least a couple of days now to think about what he said, and he hasn't obviously shown it. And yeah, I mean, it's getting to the point now where it is very much there are two types of people who don't like AEW and people who do love AEW so much that there is absolutely no grief. And I really feel that a lot of the vitriol and a lot of the hate here is because people can't handle the idea that some people actually don't care if AEW is good or not, or if it succeeds or not. And some people, like ourselves, for instance, like AEW, but are very happy to critique what we think is not very good. And there are a large proportion and a large proponent of AEW fans who genuinely believe that everything is fucking wonderful and perfect and sunshine and lollipops. And to be that naive, to be honest. I would love to be that naive and live in that fantasy world, but I don't. I live in the real world where actually it's healthy for people to receive criticism. And when I started wrestling training, I don't think I would have got a debut or achieved anything whatsoever if they continuously told me every time I did a shit bump or a shit international or my cardio wasn't up to snuff. If they were just like, yeah, it doesn't really matter, mate, it's okay. As long as you're here, that's all that matters because everything's all inclusive. No, actually, there needs to be a certain level of professionalism. And like anything, any walk of life or any job, if you are not good enough or you're not up to scratch, you are absolutely obligated to accept criticism from others, providing it has a constructive nature to it. Now, if someone just comes out and says, AEW are fucking shit and blah, 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 fair enough. But we've never done that. I've certainly never done that. I've always said on the podcast reviews, feel free to challenge me if you feel that anything I've said is unfair. And ultimately, the only things I get back are a lot of abuse and a lot of hate mail in our Facebook inbox. That's all I get. I never get anyone trying to argue the point with me like a human being or debate me properly. Not at all. So that speaks volumes about your fan base, not the other fan bases.
Caps lock and repeating themselves. That's how people win arguments, or how people think they win arguments.
Like I said last week, I reviewed AEW Dynamite last week. It's on again tonight. We're recording this Wednesday night, full disclosure. And there were a couple of things that I fucking adored, thought were amazing. And there are a couple of things which I thought were utterly hot garbage. And ultimately, it's just my opinion. So that's fine too. Nobody said you had to pay attention to it, but let's be honest. The whole thing with Cornette and Miro, that's just a tiny little subtitle on what is the actual headline here. And the headline really is that, once again, AEW and their fans and their wrestlers, who are good people for the most part, can't handle any kind of criticism. And Cornette isn't always right. Sometimes he says some fucking stupid things. And even I sit there and think, oh, Jesus Christ, mate.
Not again.
But yeah, exactly. It is. It is very much like old man yells at clouds, and I can just see Grandpa Simpson going, oh! But at the same time, I'm not going to completely discourage anything that Jim Cornette says, because actually he is regarded widely as one of the all-time greatest minds of wrestling. And just because
100%.
a load of people from the Elite and the Bullet Club find that, or should I say the Bullet Club, because it's not the proper Bullet Club, just because they find that offensive, because he takes them to task, because he would like wrestling to be a little bit more realistic, does that mean he's completely right? No. But does it mean that you're right as well, just because you don't like his opinions? No. It's just an opinion. It's just an opinion.
Opinions are like assholes, man. Everybody's got one.